Onto the draft we go. Machi going to be on your blue side, Nova Esports over on the red, and you got to start things off here. Rocky himself has been able to draw this ban single-handedly alone. That's not a Golden Feet ban, that's a Rocky ban in the form of the Callista, as well as Ryan being targeted here with the Nidalee getting banned out.
Yeah, there's a ton of respect on towards Rocky's Callista, and yes, I would not be surprised at all as there's two power farming junglers getting taken out of the table, as we'll have to see whether or not Nova will either take the Galio or perhaps remove that, as that will open up a couple of AD carries for Bruce to use later on.
Yeah, because we haven't seen G4 often go onto the Galio. He much prefers, you know, your control mages or scaling comps like the Orianna or the Corki, so it would be a little bit out of Nova's wheelhouse, but we do see, like we saw, Twisted Fate being banned out away from Mission, and the Ezreal going to be the final ban, more or less directed, of course, to Bruce. Either goes onto that Ashe or Ezreal, and usually is going to be dictating how the team plays, as it looks like we're going to have a Volibear as the first lock-in for Machi.
Again, for Machi, before everything else, they're usually the ones that has garnered that single or two-time victory. It's all in their team, and it's usually towards Gemini, or rather towards PK at the top side of the map, rather than what the other teams would utilize is usually in the jungle.
All right, now for Nova, do we see them go ahead and put some priority immediately onto something like that Ashe, considering the Ezreal has now been banned out, has been one of the go-to pickups for Golden Feet?
Yeah, it makes me wonder what would be the fallback for Bruce after that Ashe getting picked up by Golden Feet, as we've seen the Trinity so far, as usually it'll be the Ashe Aphelios matchup in the bottom side of the map.
All right, so Ashe is going to go ahead and get locked in, and for Nova, it does allow them to have that enchanted crystal arrow. And well, to mention a little bit earlier, power farmers might be looking at something like an Olaf here for Ryan.
Yeah, it definitely will still fit the style that Nova desires, and it will be an eeny, meeny, miny, mo, whether or not G4 will try to match that early game aggression, or perhaps try to see whether or not they can put on full pressure on towards Mission.
And now here for Bruce, of course, has been one of the few 80 carries when it comes to the PCS to actually make the Kai'Sa work, especially here in summer. Did pick up the victory with it last week, but that Aphelios is still open and is still at risk to being counterpicked in the form of range if G4 wants to bring out something with a lot of it in mid.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting, considering the fact that Bruce, I believe, has never picked up the Aphelios yet so far, would always usually fall back to the Varus if it's open, or perhaps maybe that Kai'Sa, which was hovered, but I guess not, since we're going to be seeing the typical bot lane matchup, which is the Ashe and as well as that Aphelios, and Thresh, a really good enabler when it comes to that heavy engaged supports.
And now my question here for Nova is, are we going to see something rather aggressive come out of their draft? Because the last time this happened, the team fell back onto scaling. I say that, they're hovering the center, it might be the case. But wouldn't make a whole lot of sense considering they already have an Ashe. Yuumi, though, would be rather interesting. Was falling out a bit, but a Karma actually might be a little bit more sensical.
Yeah, Karma can still be either flex towards G4. I've never ever seen Rocky just yet fall back to any of the mages at the top side of the map, usually on the Bruiser, so either G4 or towards Pop. Curious to see, though, as Leona is still open for the taking, to see whether or not they can match that early, or rather that aggression in the bottom side of the map.
I find it, though, scary here for Nova that they're saying, all right, we're fine trying to go toe-to-toe in the scaling part of the game, but we still, again, need to see some range kind of come out of this draft if we're going to see the Karma go down into the bot lane. While I'm hoping Rocky has something that can get onto the back line of Machi, or else I do feel like Bruce at the moment is not really threatened outside a Crystal Arrow that he could, of course, just cleanse or QSS.
Yeah, for sure. And just as you mentioned about Rocky, Machi is just taking out any of Rocky's safe picks at top side who, you know, has contributed to Nova's victory as well. So curious to see what the adjustments has been made. Rocky has fell back towards that Mordekaiser. Some of these matches that we've encountered in the round robin.
We'll see here is that's going to be Renekton being banned out, as well as the jungle being taken a hit again toward Gemini. Has often enjoyed having himself something like the Lions of the Trundle. Not going to happen this time, as the Graves was banned out earlier, so we'll see if Gemini's pool is going to widen a little bit here, as that has been his 3 primary pickups, either banned away or taken, and fall into our last ban from Machi. Of course, it's going to be the Cassiopeia being banned out away from G4.
Yeah, for G4 would always usually fall back to the Cassiopeia pick, but he does have no issues when it comes to the champion pool at least. But as we see that hover, it looks like we're not going to be seeing any sort of that Leona support. So a little bit of more on that roam with that Bard, and a lot of anti-dive, if you will, in the form of that Tempered Fate.
Yeah, Temper Fate can make it rather difficult to try and make a bunch of plays happen toward the bot lane if you're on the side of Machi, if you're trying to be rather aggressive overall. So a nice pickup too. A lot of roaming options here for Pop. That has often worked very well alongside his roams with Ryan in the jungle, as now we take a look on over to Machi and they say, you know what, we don't care about your roams. We're just going to scale for days with that Corki getting locked in.
And it's falling back to the typical mission style of having to just scale. This has been their approach back in spring. Mission back at it again in this Corki pick. So I guess it's the adjustment. What will Nova decide to pick up this time around? As you know, Gemini will be picking up his Lee Sin once more.
And Lee Sin, there you go, getting locked in allows him to get a little bit aggressive and help kind of bridge that early game. Likely means, though, that PK is going to be actually rocking the Volley Bear up in top lane. And here from Nova, Rocky going down a little bit into his arsenal when it comes to his champion pool. It's going to be the Gnar getting locked in.
Pretty interesting. We've never seen Gnar back at spring, even in summer, even though there's a couple of little bits of really nice buffs when it comes to the Gnar pick. So I'm curious how this is going to work out, considering, again, this not only enables really good team fights, this also great dives as well when you're back at that Mega Gnar. So I'm curious how this is going to pan out for Nova.
Yeah, for Nova, again, this is the first time that we are going to get to see the Gnar, I believe, over in the PCS as a whole. We did see the Gnar a little bit over, I think it was in the LPL, and I think even in LCS it was picked up once or twice so far during their summer split. But a little bit of spice coming out here of Nova, but it does really feel like Machi are back in their comfort zone when you take a look at this draft and you see a bunch of scaling in the form of that Corki and Aphelios.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest question is whether or not Nova is able to prevent that scaling, slow down that scaling against Mission and as well as Bruce, as again, Machi is very comfortable with this kind of play style and approach to the game.
Well, onto the Rift we go. Of course, for Machi, a victory here would secure them at least a berth into the playoffs. No matter what happens between Resurgence and Liab, they will not be able to catch them back up as far as 10 wins go. For Nova, victory here breaks them out of that four-way tie for fourth and is absolutely crucial if they want to try and get higher seeding head into playoffs as we go ahead and load onto the Rift for our first game of the day.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
And to say, I think I'm a little bit disappointed here with Nova, as we do see G4 in the squad actually roaming into the jungle, just getting those early wards down, try and spot out where Mission is pathing. We see him on something that's a lot less impactful than his usual, say, Orianna or Azir or Corki, instead opting into a little bit more of that support playstyle, trying to buff up Golden Feet as well as Ryan.
Yeah, it just means that they're banking a lot on Ryan once more, quite similar to the first game that we've seen between Machi and Nova in Week 6. So they're trying the same thing again. Hopefully this Gnar switch up would be the different factor that would have a more proven successful route to defeat Machi, perhaps.
We'll see here. For now, it's going to be opening up the game here with an invade coming out of Gemini and PK. So at least have some tempo, and as well as Rocky actually is going to go ahead and check this over the wall, spots him out and says, all right, Ryan, you have full knowledge of where these guys are pathing. You guys could maybe try and at least path on over and maybe prevent a 3-buff start.
Yeah, considering the fact that Nova has already established vision at the bottom side of the map, when it comes to the red side jungle of Machi, so everything, the adjustment will definitely have a lot of information for Nova to work with.
And you mentioned back in draft here for Machi, they have some tools to dive, of course. And are we maybe expecting that come level 6 out of PK with a possible teleport play down toward the bot lane alongside Koala?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. The checklist is there. You have that engage in the form of Koala on this Thresh, and as well how Golden Feet will not have that cleanse, will have that heal, so there's a little bit of vulnerability when it comes to the lane. So it all boils down to Machi, whether or not they can set up a dive, getting that priority, or setting up advanced wards in the lane.
We'll see if that's going to be the case here. Ryan, though, is successful actually on the invade here, taking away the Raptors, and also going to go ahead and opt in to taking away the red buff. So, again, Gemini not going to be able to get himself a 3 buff here. Interested, though, whether Rocky is actually going to be dove here rather early on into the game before he hits that level 6 where he has that, you know, Mega Nard to prevent a dive.
I think it's very tricky to dive a Gnar in general, just because of that Mega Gnar form. You do have that, at least some form of CC, and you do have that hop in that mini Gnar as well. So for Nova, I think Rocky for now will be a little bit safe, as Gemini is still trying to get his camps for now.
Well, you do see Ryan is path down, though, toward the ball lane. We'll see Pop needs to be that primary engage. Is going to get hooked up, but meanwhile, he's happy just getting closer into the action. Q comes out, gets a nice double stun, but a little bit too far away here for Nova to pull the trigger as they get back to the safety of the tower on the side of Machi.
I think that's going to be a little bit of a victory, considering Koala might be a little bit more reliant to set up any sort of flash death sentences to set up for Gemini in case he does, you know, visit the bottom side of the map.
So unfortunately, no first blood coming out here of Nova. You do see that Pop is still wanting to play rather aggressive, and I think at least early on during this early to mid game is going to be the primary source of Nova's plays in around the map, especially if they want to try and make anything happen toward Mission and mid.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that said, you know, Ryan making his first move at the moment. Seems to me, Gemini.
Gemini, though, coming on over. PK gets that flash stun, but in comes the teleport. That's going to be G4 entering in onto the fray, but a little bit too late as First Blood already goes on over to Gemini, and G4 going to get that enhanced match for Q, but PK is just doing just fine. So First Blood up in the top lane is going to be secured, though, by the Lee Sin.
Yeah, great timing by Gemini, you know, having to see Ryan make a visit down at bottom side. The exchange is unfortunately Rocky at top side, who has been falling towards, you know, having been camped constantly in most of the games in the PCS.
Yeah, unfortunately, the resources not going in his favor, as we mentioned before. Usually Ryan needs to pay a lot of attention toward that top side of the map, and we also mentioned your Gnar rather vulnerable before that level 6, and that's exactly where Machi's striking.
Oh.
Hook, though, is going to land here onto Pop, but it looks like Nova are going to be just fine here, but you do see already Bruce stepping up, as even though he's down that one wave, not afraid to continue the fight here on the Aphelios.
Yeah, not afraid at all. Koala without a flash, and I mean, Bruce still has his complete summoner spells. Probably the reason why he's a little bit more brave, but this gives room for Ryan to take this the first dragon of the game.
Yeah, without Mission having that level 6 to have the rockets just easily, you know, continually pushed in the mid lane up against G4, means Prio goes on over to Nova, and that secures them their first dragon of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Corki can be a little bit hungry when it comes to the mana. So in terms of having to clear the waves, it's not going to be as available as expected just yet at this point of the game.
So with that now, it pretty much is already said overall from Nova that I think Rocky, we're not going to be expecting a whole lot of resources to be directed up to him into the top lane, and at least Ryan has been able to at least get something for that early tower dive or early kill going on over to Machi in the form of picking up some objectives and at least trying to get some control toward the bot side of the map.
Yeah, and if you know Machi has control over top side, that means they will have that upper hand, having to have more space to create teleport plays, which we did mention I'd be very afraid for Golden Feet, especially looking at that Volley Bear and as well as Gemini's Lee Sin.
But we do also have on the side of Nova the option, of course, to, once you hit level 6, either disengage entirely with that Tempered Fate or even go with the Crystal Arrow from the Ashe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where we mentioned it's a very anti-dive. It's also a very anti-Rift Herald value, just in case Machi does have a lot of control over the map, just because they're able to get at least one kill over Rocky, so Rocky might be a little bit more careful when it comes to the top side. And at the moment, though, you know, level 6 are starting to come online for most of the laners now.
And we're also starting to see the first little bit of components come out through our items as we look to scale, as that's going to be tier already picked up here by Mission. Going to be stacking that away, and Amtone from G4 could always opt to the Athenes or the Ardent, even possibly the Ludens if he wants to get aggressive. And speaking of aggressive, Gemini wants to go toe-to-toe here with Ryan, has the level advantage, can easily just go head for the solo kill in the jungle, and that's what he'll do as Ryan just gets beat down by the Lee Sin of Gemini.
Yeah, level advantage, no Ragnarok, no speed boost, at least to escape from danger, and Gemini is able to get a solo kill on Ryan as, again, they were all just trying to battle for scuttle control.
And with that kind of shuts down a little bit of the momentum that we even saw coming out of Nova. The fact that Ryan was able to get an early objective. Gemini now says, all right, this is my jungle, and I'm not afraid to go toe-to-toe with you.
And the thing is, there was not information in towards that river, therefore Ryan has to manually walk and meet Gemini, and unfortunately it is too late, as again, Machi does have control over that river with a ton of vision on their side.
And now, especially too for Gemini, that's now picking up his second kill of the game. Has finished off that Warriors enchant in a prime position if you're a Lee Sin player. Interesting from Nova, though, we mentioned that, you know, top side was kind of surrendered. Well, at least they are the first ones to interact here toward the Rift Herald, as Pop had already roamed up into mid, and for Machi, just a little bit too late to stop this.
Yeah, getting that timing on towards the blue, as Mission is having a bit of trouble when it comes to getting that mana sustain. So Nova, quick thinking, is able to snatch that Rift Herald under Machi's noses.
I do see here in this bot lane, though, this is a scary situation if you are a Nova fan, considering that Bruce is now, picked up 3 turret plates. We've seen what happens once the Aphelios gets online rather early, especially from teams like AHQ, very similar to Machi.
Yeah, it can spin out of control, and nicely done death.
But here comes a re-engage from Golden Feet. That is going to be not even cleansed at this point, as Bruce didn't even take it. Ryan, though, going to come on over with the teleport, wants to try and make action happen, but ends up missing the crucial axe if you wanted to try and slow down Bruce, and means Nova are not going to be able to turn anything around. Meanwhile, mid lane, PK alongside Gemini and Mission. Package is available for the Corki. Might be looking for a dive, but doesn't appear to be the case as PK opts to go back toward the top side of the map.
Yeah, Machi being a little bit more careful here, as for Nova, though, back at the bottom side of the map, they're not able to at least burn a couple of summoner spells towards Bruce, so that's something that they will have trouble still if they want to seal the deal when it comes to Bruce.
And if you're now looking toward Nova, you got 20 seconds into that Infernal that you were looking to stack here if you're on the side of Ryan, but unfortunately, a really good package timing for Mission makes this rather difficult for them to execute, especially with the fact that they already used that Crystal Arrow in the previous fight. Only real ultimate to try and disrupt anything would be this Bard for Pop.
Yeah, and for Nova's chances to try and contest, it's a little bit difficult, as Bruce has that pickaxe and as well as that BF sword. Damage power-wise, Nova is definitely still not there yet. It would be definitely Ryan's job to eliminate the prime carries at this point. And again, you have G4 on the Karma to further achieve that, and as well as Rocky on the Meganar to set that up. Nova, in the meantime, roaming towards the top side of the map instead.
So with that, Nova are going to go ahead and give up control. But meanwhile, there's that dive you were talking about earlier. Gemini was looking for a play, but instantly the amount of restraint on this man not to go for the kick when he saw that teleport come through from G4 is enough to persuade Machi to not take the dive. But meanwhile, mid lane, that does mean Mission gets a free plate.
Yeah, that is definitely the exchange that Nova has to pay for. I suppose they do prevent the dive, but more money goes towards Mission's pocket.
So Mission's going to, of course, get some more gold for that Corki. And again, kind of been the Gemini show, and very similar to what we saw in the very first matchup between these two squads back in spring, where Ryan was just kind of outclassed up against Gemini. I think that was the easiest way to sum up that victory they were able to take home.
Yeah, and it is definitely one of those games where we saw Ryan having to see or enter any sort of desperate moves, if you will, without the squad. But so far, it has still been looking stable, despite having Gemini getting that 2-0 kill for the first 12 minutes of the game.
Let's take, though, note here. You got your first item online for G4. Gonna be the Athenes. So, you know, not necessarily the most damage happy. He is going much more of that support in toward the mid lane and trying to buff up Golden Feet. I think the question is, will Nova ever be able to actually match up the damage that is being exerted out from the side of Machi in the form of this Corki and Aphelios?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely the scary part, just because for Machi's side, there's a lot of damage output, especially once Mission is able to get his 2-item power spike, and Bruce is able to just keep farming it up, especially he has been building up that CS lead against Golden Feet. And I guess the biggest question is whether or not they're able, for Nova, are they able to set up teleport flanks to set up for this Gnar so that they'll be able to reach the backline, because there's a lot of heal and as well as crazy engage, well, not crazy, but scary engage coming from Machi.
Yeah, of course, they could always pull that trigger. But you take a look individual lanes for Rocky, even though he is down the 1 death up against PK, he actually just finished off his call and actually sits about 30 CS above that Volibear on his Gnar. So he's going to get a nice little injection of gold, but still a while. Meanwhile, bot lane, Golden Feet nowhere near Pop at this point. That's an easy pickup kill and a very, very easy death to avoid if you're on the side of Nova. Is that giving over the first kill to this Aphelios here at 13.5 minutes?
That is unfortunate, and again, a little bit questionable, I see, considering the fact that Pop was nowhere nearby. A 2v2 will not be possible, and a disengage would not be possible, and it is definitely a quick death once you're hooked.
Yeah, I just have to question, like, what's the idea here from Golden Feet? We mentioned that, you know, Pop's nowhere near, and Pop actually went ahead and tried to go roaming with Ryan, which is kind of what we expected to now see a little bit earlier on in the map, unfortunately. I think it's a little late here for Nova, but yeah, that's just an easy death that could be avoided. We'll see if Nova, though, want to try and make a play here, but Rocky's already backing off the base, as that's going to be 6 turret plates actually in favor of Machi overall, as Nova were not able to get a single plate in the first 14 minutes of the match.
Yeah, very tough as, an engage?
That's engage coming out. PK, big bear at this point. Exhaust comes out onto Gemini, looking to just slow down the Lee Sin. That's going to be enough to actually force Nova to have to back off, as Ryan's at about a 3rd health, and that should be Machi's very first Rift Herald of the game.
Yeah, and the fact that they've managed to get a lot of plates already on key targets, key players, Mission and Bruce, this is definitely a great bonus to take more.
G4 himself, he's on a rather low-impact champion in the form of this Karma. Olaf in the beginning is just not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, which is a very, very interesting approach, because considering the fact that we've seen how Olaf can just spin things out of control once ahead, and you pair that up with a utility support in the mid lane, and then you can fall back at least towards the AD carry. But if Machi's lanes are winning so far, this is looking a very, very, very dire for Nova.
Ooh,
there's the
Golden Feet. That's going to be an arrow, as well as a Tempered Fate they will want back. We'll see whether or not they can burst them on down. That's going to be a great route. In comes Gemini over toward the side, able to connect. In comes PK, and they get absolutely turned on their head as this composition from Machi are mobile. G4 able to get himself back to safety. Flash on forward. The Rocket should be able to finish him off. Underneath the tower, though, is Rocky. He gets sacrificed for G4. And that is going to be 4 kills going back in favor of Machi, as well as the Rift Herald in top lane.
Ay, ay, ay. So normally for Nova, if the first engage doesn't work, if the Tempered Fate doesn't work, I thought, Nova would have respected that and would fall back. But unfortunately, they've used everything already. It didn't work, but still committed towards the fight.
And you could just say that's just sloppy execution coming out of Nova, especially the fact you take a look. First, that ultimate misses, Tempered Fate misses. At that point, just call off the play.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things where we look back at the air quote desperation play. We're already here. Why not just commit? But the fact that Machi still has all of their key ults left, the fact that Rocky is still not close in towards that Mega Gnar form, which means, Nova was not prepared for that fight.
And you even saw there on the replay as well, no vision coming out of Nova. There was one ward, I think, down toward the blue buff of Machi, but everyone came in via the jungle, and at that point, it was just a little bit too late. A hasty call coming out of Nova that ends up netting them nothing as they lose out on 4 members. 2 towers are taken by Machi. And just like that, we went from a 3,000 gold lead to now 6,000 in form of Machi.
Yeah, Machi was able to pick up a bunch of kills with, you know, G4 would be the only one that is able to escape from that one. And now for Nova, they gotta do is play defense at this point, considering that, again, Machi does have control at the moment.
And it's still going to be a while before Nova can really try and answer here. You only got your first item onto Ashe in the form of that Bork, as well as the upgraded boots. Sure, that's all great and dandy, but she ain't going to be doing a whole lot of damage in compared to the Runaan's Infinity Edge Bruce that's online, as well as Mission that now has that fully stacked Muramana, as well as Trinity Force.
Yeah, we were talking about that 2-item power spike for Mission. He is definitely primed and ready to deal the pokes towards Nova. And just as you mentioned, got the Runaan's and IE. So Machi definitely prime and ready against Nova at the moment.
And for Nova, we kind of said, you know, the whole reason that they could even come into this game with a chance is they need to have better team fight execution. But so far, Gemini is putting on a clinic on how to Lee Sin up against Ryan's Olaf at this point, as that's going to be another kill secured alongside the second tier tower.
This is looking pretty tragic for Nova, as Machi's still not stopping.
And G4, he gets hooked. He's got nothing left. PK just dives the tower because he can. And so far, Machi looking clean at the moment, as Rocky's going to at least try and trade back a tower. But look at that gold graph. Bruce, Mission, Gemini, your mega carries so far for Machi.
Yeah, they're having a field day. All of the top 3 carries coming from Machi are having fun. And again, when it comes to their laning phase, they were very comfortable, and that's the reason why they can make aggressive plays. If, you know, the Q doesn't work, just go ward hop, get that kick in, see whoever you are able to pick, and they're able to pick off Pop. And unfortunately, the damages are devastating, because not only they get a tower off of 1 kill, they also manage to get another kill off of G4.
And there you are, G4. Unfortunately, that's going to be his first death. Sure, you were going deathless on Karma, but he didn't even get a kill and assist so far, and that's kind of that's a big glaring issue at the moment here for Novas. They've yet been able to pick up a single kill up against Machi, when they are supposed to have the tools to go for engages, to go for these big team fight wombo combos, but we have just not seen it happen. His Mission just kills G4 in a side lane. Rocky doesn't even hit his ultimate. Gemini is dancing on the circle, and there you go. It's 11-0 for Machi.
It's 11-0. Gold lead is starting to pile on for Machi. It just means that more map control, all objectives will go towards Machi, and as well as especially Baron. Therefore, Nova will have a hard time having to steal or get these things, get these resources away from them. It's not looking pretty for Nova.
And with that too, now Machi are set up for an Ocean Soul on the next Dragon spawn. We get to take a look at this just solo. Yeah, Mission has a package. He don't care about that tether. He just goes closer to you.
He don't care at all, and yeah, for G4, having to give up as well, not using the flash, as there is definitely no escape with the package on, especially.
And I kind of have to go back to the draft overall when you take a look at this composition from Nova. G4, he is your star tie mid laner that has always been crucial for the team's success. When he gets to get on something like the Orianna, like the Azure, go for the big damage. When you put him on something like a Karma, he can't do a whole lot, and the rest of the team currently just try and backtrack as he even gets kicked during the portal. And that push is now going to start sieging in here from Machi.
Yeah, exactly. For Nova, they've definitely really evolved, if you will, having to pour more resources on towards Ryan, as, again, more of the power farming jungler has definitely been a little bit more popular, so shifting weight, again, towards the jungle position rather than... It depends on the matchup, too, for G4, but now they're up against Machi. Seems to me that they're still opting towards putting resources on towards Ryan, and now Machi is heading for the Baron.
And that Baron goes down really fast. You got 3 items onto the Aphelios as well as a Corki alongside a full damage Lee Sin, as that is going to be Temper Fate coming out from Pop. Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well onto Koala. Is going to go into space if in comes the re-engage from PK, but he's back off. And there you go. Some decent damage coming out from Nova. Cold Feet needs to step forward, but instantly he's going to get bursted down as Bruce just flashes into the back line of Nova and shuts him down. Rocky, sure he wants to go for a play, but he can't even transform before being put into the dirt. It's a double kill for Mission.
And here I thought that was the time for Nova to take things back. Wait, PK?
PK, he's a giant bear. He doesn't care. His G4 as well as Pop are on the wrong side of the map, and that is complete control. Now over to Machi, that we're looking at a possibly perfect game over Nova Esports, having only dropped the single tower and dragon so far, not giving up a single kill in the first 25 minutes.
And the thing was, Machi, it looked pretty convincing for Nova to win that fight. Unfortunately, you know how far ahead Machi is if the AD carry, if the Aphelios flashes in to just get more up in your face. And with that, Nova unable to punish just because Tempered Fate gone, no Crystal Arrow, just means no punish.
And your heroes of this play from Nova, you have to say, maybe this fight completely different. If Rocky is here, like, way earlier on during the fight, he's split pushing at the moment. You see Cold Feet in the want to go for this fight. You can watch Cold Feet. If he gets close enough, he's able to do damage, but he's still only an item and a half on this Sivir.
Yeah, only an item and a half. And for Rocky, unfortunately, usually before he teleports, you manage your rage bar at least for that Gnar, but it didn't happen. He teleported it. He teleported without that bar, not even close, and unfortunately the setup will be too late.
So now for Nova, your hope was on Golden Feet. He's still yet to have his rune ends in his back pocket. You wanted to maybe see Ryan destroy this early game, but it just did not happen. And like we mentioned, Nova, they are very much decided their performance overall, whether or not Pop, Ryan can make plays, but when you miss Tempered Fates like this, it's an easy walk-in for Machi.
It's an easy walk-in. Inhibitors are already falling. Again, you know, no summoner spells at least for the carries of Machi, but the same goes for Nova. We'll have to see whether or not, as Crystal Arrow is already up.
Gotta make a decision. Your towers are going down for Machi. There are only 2 towers, 1 Nexus now away from locking in a playoff berth, and it looks like Nova, they don't want to add any more to the death count at this point, as short of just a turn and dragon, it was near a perfect game from Machi as they take down Nova Esports.
No deaths, very clean. That was very hard to watch for sure for Nova fans. But yes, it has been that story for Machi and Nova as they've constantly crushed them since spring.
I think overall that was just, it comes back to draft, I think, overall for Nova. What are you supposed to do here? Like, you're hoping that your Korean import combo of, you know, Pop, Ryan are able to roam around the map, make plays happen, but it just never happened. We never saw Pop roam outside of that first Rift Herald, and Ryan, he's on an Olaf that builds Cinderhulk first like, with a Karma mid lane. That's never going to be able to get a kill up against a Corki.
Yeah, I think they noticed that, okay, they probably changed plans. That's the reason why there's a different item path, as the first duel between, what do you call this, Gemini and as well as Ryan didn't pan out so well, and they figured that, hey, we need to survive a little bit longer, especially that Rocky most of the time wasn't involved in most of the fights or would be late coming into the party. So it was a tough match for Nova for sure.
Yeah, I think for Nova, we never got to see during that game a proper 5-man fight from them. Usually it was an odd man advantage in the form of Machi just having all their players to fight earlier. Unfortunately, Rocky was a little bit late to some of the TPs, and we're going to actually see one just right now where they have to use all their resources onto a support, but even then they're not even able to get a single kill.
Yeah, they've already used the Tempered Fate, already used the arrow, and Koala is able to survive through all that. That means Bruce can comfortably flash in, just deal all the damage in the world. And again, the Gnar isn't able to get to Mega Gnar form, therefore no sets at all.
And your MVP of the match, I think it was rather obvious. It's going to go on over to Gemini, like we mentioned, putting on a clinic on how to Lee Sin here in the PCS, absolutely dominating Nova Esports.
Yeah, a well-deserved MVP is practically everywhere, able to secure the objectives around the map and is able to pressure every single lane against Nova.
So with that, Machi now, like we mentioned, are secured into playoffs. They have 10 wins, and neither Resurgence or Liab are going to be able to catch them when it comes into the standings. So very similar to Taipei J team. If they really wanted to, they could easily go ahead and try and experiment a little ahead of playoffs, as they no longer have to have that worry in the back of their head of, what if, Liab, Resurgence, and we lost every single one of our games, and, something all happened, and they somehow fell out of playoffs. Wasn't going to happen. Let's go ahead on over to Patty alongside Gemini for our interview.
Jungle 一定是必配的角色，叫做李星。那这场比赛你觉得李星要玩得好，有什么是必备的吗？
So people say that a good jungler, pro gamer jungler, that needs to be really good with Lee Sin, and you did really well with your Lee Sin in that game. So I want to ask you, what technical skills do you think a player needs to be good at to be good with Lee Sin?
首先呢，你要把李星玩好，一定要带重击，并且要有一颗想秀的心，这样就够了。
So I think that if you want to play Lee Sin One, you have to bring Smite, and also you want to be a show-off, and that's how you can play Lee Sin well.
OK， 那目前在前4名的季后赛，其实竞争算是非常的激烈的。那目前你们领先了 AHQ 1场胜差嘛？那想请问你们最不想要在季后赛遇到哪一支队伍呢？
So the top 4 teams in the PCS are all really close in the standings, and you guys are only 1 game ahead of AHQ. So I want to ask you, which team do you want to avoid the most in the playoffs, and why?
最不想的当然是目前第1名的 J Team， 因为看他们这个夏季赛气势很旺，怕遇到他的时候，我们有可能再输一次。
So the team that we want to avoid the most, obviously J Team, because they're really strong and they're looking really good, and we're afraid that we're going to lose another game if we play against them.
好的，那也恭喜你们拿下今天的胜利，当然也感谢翻译，也谢谢 Gemini 接受我们的访问。哇，这刚刚在 Gemini 说出他们最不想遇到的对手是 J Team 的时候，我偷偷瞄了一下 ZOD 笑了。
As you guys saw there on your screen, for just a hit sec, of course, our next game going to be up against Resurgence as well as HQ. I like that Gemini's like, yeah, to be a good Lee Sin, you got to take Smite. I'm like, is that every jungle you're supposed to take Smite? Gemini, if that's the secret sauce, then I should be Diamond every day of the week.
There's another recipe though. You gotta show off. You gotta have the mentality that you wanna show off and get that highlight reel.
Very similar to what we saw like last week with PK and them, where they were dancing on their enemies' graves with Renekton. So maybe Machi, they always seem to be the calm collective team. Either they're just the show off team. Either way, we're gonna go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, of course, it's our next matchup. Resurgence taking on AHQ.
CTBC Bank is Taiwan's top financial institution, but we're not stopping there. We're crafting an international brand and already have over 260 outlets in 14 countries. We are by your side, ready to embrace the future.